Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Thank you all for being here today. It's always such an encouragement and just such a blessing to have a church full of people who desire to be here. And so it's great to see all of you. This is a testimony, and so I'm not going to give like some big lecture or like throw a bunch of verses at you or anything. I'm going to be telling you a story of my life. So as you all know, I'm your intern now. Just graduated, and I now am going to start my master's tomorrow. And so, unlike most, it took me 7 years to get my degree, my bachelor's, and so I just want to open up that chapter of my life and share with you what I went through during that time, just so you can know where I've come from and why I'm so grateful for all of you here. So let's start back when I had just graduated high school in 2008. I was 18. I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I didn't know what college would bring. I was a freshman. I was so excited. I was just like, oh, everyone here is a stereotype. There's the jock, there's the cheerleader, there's this and that. And I was just so excited. I was just so full of like glee. I was just a stupid little freshman. That's what freshmen are supposed to be. They're supposed to be ignorant. They're supposed to be naive. They're supposed to be fresh into the face of higher education. And so that's exactly what I was. And I was doing well in school. I was I don't know, like an average student. I got B's. I got a couple of C's here and there. I wasn't that into education, but I fared decently in college when I first started. However, when I turned 19, I got into a terrible relationship with someone who would just suck the life out of me for the following like 2-some years. It was a terrible relationship that did me no good. I saw my friendships around me crumble. I saw my own health start to deteriorate. And it was terrible. It was something that I wish I didn't have to experience, but I learned a lot from it. When I was also 19, towards the end, maybe like the middle-ish, I don't know, around like August or so, that's when my mom had been re-diagnosed with cancer, when we had thought she had beaten it the first time. By the time I turned 20, the day after my birthday, my mom had died to cancer. Something that devastated me, something that crushed me, something that I didn't know how to cope with. That was the first time I'd encountered death firsthand. And so I didn't know how to grieve. And so I threw myself into school at the time. I tried to take as many classes as I could, but I didn't do well in them. I couldn't concentrate on them. I was more worried about my own emotional well-being. And so by the time I had turned 21, I dropped out of college. I dropped out because I couldn't do it. I just could not bear the pain and try to go through college with that, coming now into a home which didn't feel complete anymore. It didn't feel like my home I grew up in. It was different. And so I dropped out and I started going to a different lifestyle. Started drinking, started smoking a lot, started going to a lot of parties, started hanging out with the wrong crowds because I just wanted fun. I just wanted something to relieve myself of pain, to be able to concentrate on something else. Like, I deserved fun. I had just been through something hard, and so this is an easy way, this is an easy release. And so that's what I did when I turned 21. By the time I was 22, I didn't care that much about school. I didn't care that much about anything, really. It's like I took a class because I knew that's what you're supposed to do. Took a class or two, and I had gotten into CSUN, which was cool for me at the time. But my dad had gotten remarried close to that time, and so he was in Singapore at the time. And so my brother Aaron and I, we were at home, and we had to work to pay for the mortgage. And so I, during that time, worked at God Provides for 7 to 8 months, working like 60 to sometimes 70-hour weeks of just manual labor. It was exhausting, and so I did not have time for school. And so I would take a class at CSUN, maybe 2, that I just would not do well in. I would get Fs in it, and they weren't having it as a university. And so I was on academic probation. I had to get my grades up, which I couldn't, which I didn't. I just didn't have time. And so I got kicked out of school, this time not by choice. And so we were struggling trying to pay for our house, and so we had to have people move in. And so by this time, my house did not feel like the home, the house that I knew anymore. It was just a place that I lived. I had emotionally detached myself completely from that house because it was just entirely and wildly different. And so by this time, though, I was getting sad. I was so depressed, and I was just so discouraged because I wasn't in school anymore. I had to go to GCC, Glendale Community College, to try to get back into CSUN, to say like, hey, I'm not stupid, I can actually do something, I can get A's in my classes. And so I wanted to change. And so by the time I had turned 23, towards the end of being 23, I had met my now wife, Regina. And by the time I knew I had an opportunity with her, she didn't stand a chance. She was going to be my wife. The second I knew I could date her, that I had the option to date her, it was over. She was going to be my wife. There was no question in my head. There was no question in my mind. I knew it would be so. And so that was great. And soon after we started dating, God put a calling on my heart to become a pastor, which I answered. However, by that time, I was struggling with my brother to pay our mortgage, and we knew we couldn't. And so I was now facing possibly homelessness. I didn't know where I would live. Fortunately, Pastor Burmy and his lovely wife and his lovely family, being so loving, welcomed me into their home. And I was able to live in their room in their other side of the house. And for a really cheap, ridiculously cheap price that I was able to pay for. And so I was extremely blessed by them during that time. By the time I turned 24, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a pastor. However, I was still struggling with the fact that I did so poorly in school before, all the stupid choices I made of being a stupid teenager, struggling with all my angsty feelings of hurt and pain. And so it was hard. I was still trying to come back into college, even though I was on academic probation, where you have to only take so many classes because they just don't trust you at the time to take any more. And so I was limited, and so I had to take certain classes. And at that time, when I was 24, I was discouraged. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I had it in me, because I would talk to counselors all the time. They're like, you're going to be in college for like 3, maybe 4 more years. And I'm like, I've already been here for like 4, maybe 5 years. I was like, I don't want to be here until I'm like 28. And so I was just discouraged. And so at the time when I was living with the Dizons, I remember talking to them and just being so just crestfallen that I just wanted to give up. And I wanted to go to ACC, which is our accreditation thing. I forget what that stands for. Do you know what it stands for, Dr. Mike? It's like Australian thing. I don't know. Anyway, it's this accreditation program that you can take alternatively to get into the Pastoral Internship. And so I considered that. However, at that time, Pastor Burmy and Millette just spoke life into me, and they encouraged me to continue my degree, because unlike every other boss in existence, Pastor Burmy encouraged me to get my degree, even if I didn't end up being a pastor. Bosses don't do that. They look out for their own business, their own self-interest. He said, get a degree, because let's say you turn out to be 26 and you don't want to be a pastor. You won't have a degree then. You'll have a high school degree and you'll still be 26. And so that stuck with me. And they encouraged me, even though I was just on the verge of giving up. By the time and after that encouragement, a few months later, I got a sign from God that He wanted me in this direction, where someone in a different church, just out of nowhere, it's someone I didn't know at that time. I had no idea who they were. But they gave me a scholarship to finish college for $12,000, right out of their own pocket. They just wrote a check for me right there. I was crying everywhere, and I was so thankful, but that was incredible. I had never experienced that kind of grace, that kind of love from someone who didn't even know me. I could have just stolen that money and ran off, blew it all, and died somewhere if I was so inclined. And so that happened. And then when I turned 25, right now, I finished school. I finished this last semester. Nice 8-class semester, driving to and from CSUN every single day, which was 2 hours worth of driving on top of having 40-plus hours of work just all the time. It's like I didn't come to church as frequently just to get rest on the weekend at times. But I finished without debt. And now I'm an apartment manager, so I don't have to worry about rent. which is incredible because interns don't make much, but that's okay. As I'm growing, I see how God is in every step, every part of our life. Even if we're not actively pursuing Him, He actively and always pursues us. He always knows what is best for us, even if we're running away from Him, which at times I was. And so this is, for me, significant when I graduated, because that was an entire chapter of mistakes, of heartache, of just a bunch of things being closed in my life, and starting a new chapter where I am starting my master's, and once that's done, I start a new chapter of being a pastor, in time being a dad, and whenever that will be, not for several years. And so I'm just thankful for my life. I'm thankful to God for what He has done, where He has brought me, what I have learned through all of this. And I'm thankful for all of you for sticking with me for the past 3 years, for believing in me, for praying for me, for encouraging me. And so that's been my life. Thank you.